Welcome to the Useful Illusions podcast, folks. I'm your host, Jenny Mythbuster, coming to you live from the digital frontier where the impossible is just a code update away. Remember, we're surfing the silicon waves of the future, and oh boy, what a ride it's going to be. Today, we're diving headfirst into the pixelated pool of possibilities with a topic that's as hot as your laptop after a Zoom marathon: the future of virtual collaboration. And who better to navigate these virtual waters with us than Ramesh Ramloll, PhD, the visionary mind behind the thought-provoking tome, Metaverse or Mindtrap, Inner Shift, Outer Shock. Ramesh has spent more time in the virtual realm than most of us have spent deciding what to watch on Netflix, and he's here to share his pixel-packed insights. So, Ramesh, let's kick things off with a question that's been bugging me more than an unskippable ad. In a world where virtual meetings often feel like we're all just awkwardly haunting a digital seance, how do you see humor and emotional connection evolving in the virtual collaboration spaces of the future?
Well, some argue that people can still engage in emotional or, humorous banter even through simple text medium. I am more interested in collaborative situations where people get together actually to solve problems. And even in those situations, you really need to have the amount of social bandwidth that we are used to in the real world to be supported in the virtual environment. I think that's the missing link. And I think the problem is that a lot of people working in technology don't look at this issue from a cognitive science first perspective. So that's where I actually come from. I'm looking at, okay, what makes up the social bandwidth that's so great in the real world, and what can be done to simulate it or to implement it in the in the virtual world. Okay, so that's my whole goal, and I try to identify these various, areas, and that's where my work kind of began.
Fascinating take,
Yeah.
Ramesh. It's like you're saying we need to upgrade our virtual reality headsets to heart sets to truly connect, right? Speaking of upgrades, let's delve into the geeky guts of this issue. Given your cognitive science-first approach, how do you envision technology bridging that gap? I mean, are we talking about virtual handshakes that feel like real handshakes, or are we going full sci-fi with emotional telepathy helmets? What's the blueprint for turning these digital ghost towns into vibrant virtual villages?
Okay. So basically, I'm not imagining, like fancy new headsets or anything like that. Like some of us are with the meta designs where you actually have eyes overlaid, on top of helmets. I don't know if people have seen that, but basically, we are trying. What I'm trying to say is that whenever we are rendering, an avatar, for example, it is important to actually have high fidelity faces. Why is that important? Because we have a whole body of research that shows that people are very good at face processing. Okay, so we are wired for face processing. The face is actually, the best platform for social information representation. Okay, so those are the kind of things I would tend to focus on. How can we create avatars that are rich in terms of expressions, and how people can actually drive the avatar with minimum hurdles, in the way, with minimum friction. So I think that's where the main developments need to happen. Now there's a number of reasons why that's not happening. It might be because of technical reasons, but I think that a lot of it is in terms of priorities, when we decide what are the things we should focus on. So that would be one of the things I would focus on. And I started working right from the basic, from a very basic perspective, looking at what makes up the social bandwidth in the real world, and then try to recreate that in the virtual environment, and what's missing in the virtual environment. So basically, that's the how I look at this problem, and I can describe a whole range of various collaboration scenarios to illustrate what I'm saying.
So it's all about giving our avatars a bit of a digital facelift to make those virtual meetings feel less like a PowerPoint presentation and more like a lively dinner party. Got it. It's like saying, let's put the face back in interface, right? Now, with this focus on high-fidelity faces and expressive avatars, I'm curious, Ramesh, how do you tackle the uncanny valley? That eerie feeling when an avatar is almost human but just off enough to be unsettling. Are we looking at a future where we need to give our avatars a pep talk before a meeting? Like, okay, digital me, remember to blink, and for heaven's sake, smile naturally?
Well, I think that it would be a mistake to need to have users to drive the avatars. In fact, I quite don't like this term. People should not be driving the avatars. They should be acting naturally, and they should be tracked, and then the avatars needs to be able to recreate as as a high fidelity level as possible automatically. So basically, there are a number of solutions here. Either you have a camera that looks at faces, and there's already existing technologies that does this. It looks at your face and then it gathers information, and then in the real time it deforms your virtual character and tries to represent in real time the what's happening with your face. Obviously there are some delays there, but it's getting better over time. So that's the kind of high fidelity representation of avatars that I think would work. The other thing is, when we look at faces and we look at what are the various components that actually makes a face as a very highly dense, social information surface, it's because we can interpret eye movements for directions, directions like pointing at things. We can just by looking at the face, we can actually decide whether a person is pleased with what's being discussed, or what are the objects in an environment that they are interested in. And there are various issues that comes with having somebody sitting down in a chair and having people actually immersed in a 3D world, which is obviously not a representation of the real world. So there are some mapping issues there, that needs to be translated, so to the avatars, that the information in the real world gets translated in the virtual world and is consistent with the interests and whatever is going on in the person's mind in the real world. So it is quite a complex problem, but at least we are thinking about it, and we are just not pushing it under the carpet and pretending that it's not there.
It sounds like we're on the brink of a be-yourself revolution in virtual reality, where the line between our digital doppelgangers and our real-world selves gets blurrier by the pixel. It's like saying, don't drive your avatar, just be, and let the tech do the heavy lifting. So, diving deeper into this tech tango, how do you see these advancements affecting the dynamics of virtual collaboration? I mean, if our avatars start mirroring our real-time reactions, are we looking at virtual meetings where someone's avatar suddenly looks bored, and it's not because they hit the wrong emoji, but because they actually yawned in real life? How do we navigate the new etiquette of such immersive environments?
Well, we'll navigate it exactly the same way as we do in the real world. Keep in mind that my idea of collaboration, just to steer the conversation in a direction that's perhaps more useful to our listeners, it's like when we look at collaboration, okay, it's not just doesn't just mean that we are in a meeting. looking at people and talking with them. I view collaboration using a very, wide, field of view lens. It's like we are looking at teachers interacting with students. That's a collaborative setting. You have teachers, using models to explain, the shape of molecules or explaining about architecture. That's a collaborative situation. You can have architects meeting in a 3D virtual world so that they can walk around inside the same building, change light fixtures, and see how things are impacting the scene, the environment. So there are many different situations where you actually can immerse somebody in a 3D world, interact with devices, prepare for emergency
So it's like
scenarios.
we're expanding the virtual conference room to include virtual classrooms, design studios, and even virtual construction sites, where collaboration goes beyond just talk and becomes a hands-on, or should I say avatars-on experience. It's not just about making small talk with pixelated peers. It's about tearing down the digital walls and building up new, interactive ways of learning, designing, and creating together. With this broad lens on collaboration, how do you see these immersive experiences shaping the way we learn, design, and work together in the future? Are we heading towards a world where virtual field trips and digital design sessions become the norm, making physical distance irrelevant?
I think it is inevitable. Okay, it's going to happen. Again, nobody can predict the timelines, but what I do think it might actually take a few. I would say maybe like 5, 10 years, maybe. Um, it's hard to predict, but definitely that's going to happen.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of a virtual renaissance, where our digital worlds become just as rich and interactive as the physical one. It's like we're all going to be digital nomads, but instead of traveling the world, we'll be hopping from one virtual space to another, collaborating and creating without ever having to worry about losing our luggage. As we wrap up, I want to thank you, Ramesh, for sharing your insights and giving us a glimpse into the future of virtual collaboration. To our listeners, if you're ready to dive deeper into the virtual rabbit hole, grab a copy of Metaverse or Mindtrap, Inner Shift, Outer Shock, visit ramesh2050.com, and make Ramesh's day. Looking forward to our next digital rendezvous, where we'll explore more mind-bending topics. Until then, remember, in the world of useful illusions, the only limit is your imagination. Catch you in the pixels.